Welcome to Sierra Club Chronicles, environmental justice, corporate responsibility, and activism. This story features a provocative new look at the way environmental issues affect us all.
New York City's land is so scarce and there's so many competing demands that open space, green recreational space, tends to fall to the bottom. This is a community that's all glass and steel and concrete and pollution.
People all over the city suffer from living in the middle of bricks. It's all high-rise, built up, brick building by brick building by brick building. There's no real open space development as such, and people suffer for that. And so we here in the Lower East Side have something that most other people in the city don't have. The community gardens around here are some of the best things that have been done in building in this city in the last quarter of a century. They're all wonderful places, every one of them. When the old tenement buildings are interspersed with these gorgeous green spaces, each one is different from the others. The community gardens are in trouble, and so a lot of us are feeling kind of desperate.
Well, you've got an enormous demand in the East Village right now for housing that basically is a reflection of the demand that's citywide. I'm a builder. I'm in the business of building. The community garden issue is an issue that I have said for years is really in the realm of our elected officials and our community boards.
In big cities in the United States, you have a division between the municipal governments on the one hand and real estate developers on the other. But I think what's happened over these last 6 years is that there's no real distinction at all between real estate developers on the one hand and city politicians on the other. It's virtually the same thing.
I feel pain in my chest. I feel pain because I'm going to lose something that I love the same way that I love one of my child. It's something that grows, you know. And I see it grow, see it the way that it's now. And they're going to take the garden.
If they destroy the garden, I don't know. I don't know what we do. I don't know what we do.
I work hard here. And it's something that I'm going to feel from my ears. I can speak no more.
Citizens saw the opportunity to create open space out of the abandoned lots that the city had taken over for tax foreclosure, but really had done nothing with, hadn't even maintained properly, and that just became garbage-strewn magnets for crime, drug dealing, and all sorts of unattractive, dangerous uses. So citizens did what we exhort citizens to do, which is to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, take initiative and improve their communities. They, at their own expense, sweat equity was invested in clearing these lots of truckloads of debris, then planting them and creating little oases that were green and safe and places where children wanted to come and play, where seniors want to sit and enjoy the hot weather months. These gardens thrived in New York City for many years under the Green Thumb program. And the city had basically decided that the gardens were valuable.
The gardens have created a community unlike anything I've ever seen. People worked together and got to know each other in a way that never really existed before. The gardens are completely interracial.
A lot of what attracts community gardens are the people that have done it, the Southern blacks, the Dominicans, the Puerto Ricans, the island people that are used to farming, the Mexicans that are used to farming in their homeland. They tend to gravitate towards community gardens because they know about farming. And we New Yorkers just go along for the ride because you learn so much. I've learned so much being in this garden from Mexicans, the Dominicans, and the Puerto Ricans.
They are promoting a level of integration that you simply don't see in other parts of New York City.
You're not judged on the color of your skin. You're not judged on your language. You're not judged on how much money you make. Here you're just one common person.
Today, the Euclid 500 garden is a living hope for the community.
Without gardens like these, there's no other areas but public community centers to go to.
And most of them are closed at specific times. And if you notice, nobody don't go to a community center. This is more kind of open air where families can come really have fun, the children can have fun. So this used like a community base. We took it over in 1992. The reason why we took it is because it was an eyesore. It was full with tires and debris, and people used to throw the garbage in here. So we lived next door, and it was really an eyesore. So all we wanted to do is to just clean up the eyesore. So we started cleaning it by hand. It took us 5 years to clean out all the debris. And after cleaning it up, you know, we from the Caribbean, we figured, well, hey, why not throw down some plants?
With each group that comes in, there are social issues that they bring to the forefront. And that's why community gardening is so important, because you hear, you listen to what the new immigrants have to say. Their need for housing, their need for education, their need for health, okay, their need for jobs. All this that you hear in the garden, and what better place for the gardens to be a network to get those people help.
I think it's vitally important in a city like ours for we taking the time to teach little children about planting and caring about crops and flowers and and trees and what they need, because the environment will sustain us into the next generation. And if we keep destroying the environment and not teaching the children how to plant and how to care, we're in trouble for the next 10, 20 years.
We need connection with nature to live and thrive. It's interesting that we refer to a place that is entirely full of concrete and brick as sterile. Sterile is the opposite of living.
In low-income communities of color, there are very few opportunities to create large parks like Central Park. In fact, that's true just about everywhere in New York City. Most of New York City's 59 community districts have less than the recommended open space ratio of 2.5 acres per 1,000 residents. And that figure drops dramatically when you're talking about low-income communities of color, especially ones that have mixed-use areas.
A lot of us can't go to the Hamptons, okay? We can't get on a plane and escape to the Caribbean. So the gardens is a way that people can get close to nature. I think as citizens of New York City, taxpayers, I think that we should demand some sort of open space, because it's not like a housing versus open space issue. It's, community garden issue. It's working hands in hand with that. You need housing, but you need an open space as well. You don't want to be surrounded by a concrete jungle. You want to be surrounded by affordable housing as well as an oasis of plants and vegetables.
We're now in this very, very heated up market where the demands for raw land and the demands to produce housing are extraordinary. And we're happy to be able to be a part of that. And we're also happy to be able to provide affordable housing in the course of doing this.
The argument is that the poor people need the housing, but then you look at what's being built, for instance, on this garden, on Esperanza Garden. They're building a project which is typical of the way that they're developing buildings these days, housing these days, and it's called 80-20 housing.
80% of the units will be market rate rentals, 20% will be low income. That low income is defined as 60% of area median income, which I think for a family of four is somewhere in the neighborhood of $35,000, $36,000 a year.
The median income of this neighborhood is $20,000. So either way, they're gentrifying this neighborhood. So they're not serving the neighborhood, they're stealing from it.
I see community gardens as being helpful to a community, which is why I encourage their expansion to have greenery instead of rubble. And I'm for them. But I also believe that some of the people involved misunderstand the nature of the project. Some of those gardens were intended to be temporary and ultimately to have housing built on them.
It had been understood for years that some of these gardens might get destroyed to make way for housing or other commercial process or other important commercial development. That had always been done on a one-by-one basis, garden by garden, with a bit of a give and take, recognizing the gardens were important. In 1999, and this was under Mayor Giuliani, the city changed that whole process and tried to get rid of all the gardens wholesale, said these are just vacant lots, and really ignored the fact that they weren't vacant lots, they were community gardens. And in ignoring that, they were ignoring the reality, they were ignoring the function these gardens serve for the communities.
Our garden is unfortunately in a very difficult legal situation right now. The mayor of this city, Mr. Giuliani, is after us and has made deals with a big-time real estate developer who wants to demolish our garden. And as things stand now, we may very well have run out of legal challenges, and our garden could very well disappear in the space of less than a week from now. I've been involved in the Jardín de la Esperanza, which is across the street from me, for 22 years, ever since the first day that it started. In fact, I was one of the people who started, along with Alicia Torres and her family, and we've worked together closely for more than 2 decades now, and turned our Esperanza garden into, I think, as good a garden as any around here, maybe even better in some ways.
I say maybe something grow here. I plant some tomatoes and flowers, you know, and everything grow. I say it's good. I beginning to clean, but nobody tell me nothing, don't clean, don't do nothing here. Clean, and when I open my eyes, I have this beautiful garden. And I have grandchildren, great-grandchildren. My boys that was small and grow here. Well, a lot of people, you know, that we have in this garden.
A whole generation of kids has grown up in that garden, and they are all going to be kicked out in the street, possibly in the space of a week from now.
I'm Charles Lowy. I'm usually here in UKID 500, and UKID 500 is one of our gardens in the East New York Coalition, of which I'm the president. And the coalition is a member of the New York City Coalition.
Last year we had 1,100 pounds of tomatoes. That's what we donated. So we probably had a couple hundred pounds more than that. There's no way to keep track because as we pick in, we give in. What happened? When we saw so many tomatoes, what we call City Harvest, who is a really well-respected agency in feeding the hungry, and they kindly came over, they took all that we wanted. And that's how we food pantry kind of come together. We started at about 3,000 pounds of food. Now we're up to about 20,000 pounds of food. So we're growing. We're growing by leaps and bounds. In addition to the tomatoes, we had 1,100 pounds of cucumbers, all different sizes. And then we have fruit trees on the side. We have apple trees. We have cherries right now. We have pears. We have tremendous amounts of peaches and plums. What we grow for ourselves is Scotch bonnets. These are very, very hot peppers. These come from the Caribbean. These are 100 times hotter than jalapeno. So just picture that. If you can't handle it, you don't even touch it.
We usually give out food from our harvest, and whatever harvest we have, we give it out to the neighborhood. We give out bags of food to about 200 people in this line. And when you tally the family makeup of all of these people, we're giving out food to anywhere from 700 to 800 people every week.
I have a family of 3 of us, and I know we got to survive because it's not easy surviving, definitely paying bills on top. I didn't realize that little bit of stuff in them bags would stretch that far.
My children, my brother, my mother, my sister, my nieces, my nephews, we all eat from this food. Sometimes it's hard for us to get food, and we get food stamps and it's not enough. So we come here and they help us out. And we're gladly appreciated for it.
We have plenty of food to give away. Plenty of food. It's amazing.
The average item of food on an American plate travels 1,500 miles to get there. Grapes from Chile, avocados from California, you name it. What happens when oil is $90 a barrel? What happens to the price of food? If we don't have locally sourced food and a supply system to get food from the country where it's grown to the cities where it's eaten, we're really going to be in a deep crisis. Urban gardening is critically important, and some cities recognize that. Chicago has an urban gardening and food production program. New York City needs to get on the program, because if we don't, we are really going to have major problems in the city.
It's remarkable how much of our food needs we actually could meet out of our own gardens. In the former Soviet Union, most people actually ate what they grew in very tiny garden plots. And in urban gardens in places like New York, for many families, it may be the only opportunity they have to have really fresh vegetables, really healthy food.
In the past couple months and years, the city has been taking the gardens and converting into this one right across the street where they're building all these cheap homes. And right now is an ongoing battle. The gardens are so vitally important to the city of New York, not only the city, to the whole country and the world. Because what happened, these are irreplaceable. When you bulldoze them and put houses in them, you destroy all these people. The community, they can't get no more food, the kids can't play, the people have no place to hang out, kids can't learn how to plant. We can't put a price on that. We cannot put a dollar sign on that. You know, the city of New York right now, they're just looking at money, how much they could sell these lands for.
When we heard of the impending auction of 115 gardens, the New York State Attorney General's office started brought a lawsuit against the city to enjoin the sale. There were other groups, such as the Green Guerrillas, that brought some litigation, but the state was in a unique opportunity with the ability to enforce state law.
When legal challenges run out, the city is aware that there's a very, very considerably politically powerful gardening movement, and many people are well disposed towards gardens. So they've developed tactics which include using helicopters and cops and showing up at, say, 5 o'clock in the morning to start a demolition when nobody's expecting it. And there's no garden that's been demolished in New York City when everybody knew exactly when it was coming.
Today's February 7th. It's about 9:15 East 7th Street between B and C, Esperanza Garden. Behind me is sort of like the morning rituals that happen every day at the garden. Between 7 and 10, there's like a bulldozer watch, but it's also sort of an impromptu meeting. Right now, people are discussing the police and police involvement in the garden issue and sort of just other general issues that pertain to the garden.
Civil disobedience, it's a time-honored tradition of people who are fighting against a system that's incredibly powerful and who have only themselves, only their small voice. In the tradition of Gandhi and the tradition of Martin Luther King, is really the only resource that the people have. So I think it's an important one to use.
Tomorrow morning, same thing. We come here and there's a civil disobedience workshop. So
what time?
Civil disobedience, we basically figure out if people who are willing to lock down, what they do, and those people who are not, how they can support them. So if we have this crew right now, and the police just came in and went, what you got to do? Who does what? Who goes inside the frog? Who goes? There's a couple of spots back there where you have to actually put your hand in the earth and lock down.
If you ever want to see the drama of, I guess, of what we're fighting for, we're all here in this wonderful community space, and there's a bulldozer behind us. You know, and that's the pave paradise and put up a parking lot. That's like, I mean, we're watching that right now as we speak. I mean, this is the industrial rolling over the community.
People stay here all night, like a bee here in the garden, waiting because we don't know if the bulldozer is coming and at what time they're going to come.
We're at the Esperanza Community Garden on 7th Street in the Lower East Side. It's early in the morning. It's about 5 o'clock in the morning, and as you can see, there's a lot of police here, and we feel that they're going to try to bulldoze the garden today, and a lot of community activists and just gardeners from the community have decided to take a stand right here to save community gardens. The people are going to be actively locking down inside the garden. People are going to be inside this frog and on giant towers, and all kinds of resistance is going to happen today. People are really serious about this, that they really need community gardens, and they're going to take a big stand today, and it's unfortunate that it's going to come down to this major battle between what looks like the city or the police against the people in the community, and it's really sad that it has to resort to this.
They're going to come both ways. That's why that street's blocked off.
Yeah.
Oh, you went around the corner. They're going to come both ways. Yeah.
I'm still hopeful but sad. The fact that this garden looks like it's going down as the police encircle the block.
The enemy forces are encircling our camp even as we speak. They're locking down. The avenues are closing down now. They've towed the cars away. They're coming for us, and we're ready.
And now Channel 7, Channel 4, New York 1, they've all come shut up. New York Times is here.
They're preparing for the police. Fortunately, the police just won't wait for the courts to rule. Attorney General office is going to be in court tomorrow in Brooklyn, seeking an injunction, and there should be a ruling whether all the gardens should be saved or not saved. And it's pretty despicable that the city is coming in so early this morning when a judge will be ruling this afternoon. I've never seen such communal spirit, especially sitting around with all these protesters around the campfire, just knowing that they're dedicated, basically putting their lives on the line to save this garden and other gardens.
I watched that go from a junkyard into a beautiful garden with fruits and stuff in there growing around, and like I said, you know, it's just the power of the people with money. That's the way I see it.
I just thought it was so tragically short-sighted. People who know the price of everything and the value of nothing, that's what was going on. They really did not see the incredible value that those gardens gave to the city of New York.
The good news in that story, I suppose, is that the fact that the city was willing, in fact, and did, bulldoze the Esperanza Garden while we were going to court within minutes, made it clear to the judge that nothing short of a court order would stop the city from bulldozing further gardens. There was no opportunity for further negotiations or discussions or good faith agreements. What was needed was a court order. That court order was later upheld on appeal and remained in effect for several years until we were able to negotiate a global settlement.
Green space is a critical part of the urban environment, and there is room to provide additional housing and additional green space. And in fact, we shouldn't be providing additional housing without providing additional green space.
There are a group of New Yorkers that have dedicated themselves to their communities and to improving the quality of life in the city of New York. And we're here to support them, to support their efforts to build better, more livable communities.
The city of New York has recently acted in the very worst way when it came to these community gardens. Instead of recognizing how much they contribute to property values and the quality of life in New York, the mayor, for reasons that are not entirely clear, has simply decided to bulldoze these lots and without regard to the impact that it has on neighborhoods. We think it's time for a better approach. The legislation that we're introducing at the next council meeting will set up a comprehensive plan to identify where the community gardens are, to make sure that they are recognized by the city of New York as community gardens, to return them to the very successful Green Thumb operation that the city was justifiably proud of for many, many years.
For years, we've been fighting the fact that we are not just vacant lands, but we are part of the infrastructure of New York City. We are the culture, we are the voice of the city, we are the people.
Look at that. Every time I come in here, I have to stare at that goddamn thing across the street. A building was built by destroying the garden, and they named the building Eastville Gardens. It's 5 years gone, and it's never going to come back. You can't go back. If we lost Esperanza, it probably was in some part responsible for slowing down the process of garden demolition throughout the city, and probably helped to save a lot of gardens around here that would have been lost if there hadn't been such a giant fight and such a well-publicized fight to save Esperanza here. So we lost our beloved garden across the street from me. At least I think we helped to save some of the other ones around here.
Esperanza very much helped make it clear that a court order was necessary to preserve the hundreds of other gardens.
In a big city, people can feel lost. But the fact is, even in a big city, a single person can make an enormous difference. A single person can begin to assemble 10 or 12 of their neighbors around the vision of a community garden.
Every community garden here is so vital. Could we fast forward life 20 years from now, 30 years from now with no community gardens, just housing? We need to look at the long-term impact. But when you have houses after rows of houses, where the children gonna play? Where the community groups gonna meet? You know, where the people are gonna come and have the barbecues? And that's what community life, especially in a poor neighborhood, that's all they have. They don't have the income to travel out of state. All they have is this little community garden. Are we gonna take that from them?
For more information on this story and other environmental issues, please visit us at sierraclubtv.org.
Funding provided by the Ford Foundation, with additional support from the Sierra Club Foundation.